What's happening, everyone, and welcome. This is a very new and exciting project that James Alcott and I are kicking off. James, an honour to welcome you onto this channel. Thank you so much for joining us. This is hopefully going to be a monthly segment. One video will occur on James's channel every month, so that video is live, so make sure that you check that out after this. And one video will occur on this channel every month, assuming that you like it. So please do us a favour. Give this video a like just so that we can monitor it, so we can check that you like the idea. We're hopefully going to be doing it in person next time. And yeah, if it gets enough likes, we will certainly persevere with it because we're very excited about doing it. This video is going to be looking forward. So we're going to spend this video analysing certain things that we believe are going to happen. There's going to be a few predictions in there. And we will be discussing football in its greatest detail. Mr. Alcott, an honour to have you here, my friend.
Yes, mate, buzzing. I was just thinking, we probably need a name for this. So, yeah, it's going to be a once-a-month thing. So I don't know if it's like, I don't know, once a month? Or is it like monthly catch-up?
Maybe somebody can help us. In the comments, if you can come up with a title, there will be a prize in it for you. I've got right here a Super Bowl jersey that belongs to the Cincinnati Bengals. If you want that, comment with the name of your of the title of this strand, and that will be yours. I'll post
You're not going to be wearing that.
I've changed teams. I'm a New York Jets fan now.
Oh yeah, okay, all right.
I'm a New York Jets, so I won't be wearing it. They're my enemies now. But yeah, so James, what we're going to do is have a think about what you believe is going to happen over the next month, and then we can revisit it at the end of the month. So we may as well get this straight underway.
Mm-hmm.
A big call. I need a big call from you between now and the end of this month. What do you think happens?
So I've put all, and this stings, this hurts, this shouldn't be occurring, but it came into my mind and we're going to talk about it. All the West London clubs that are in the Premier League, because there's one missing at the moment, sadly. Not for long, Mick Beale's on that, will be in the top 10 come October the 1st. Because we're going to talk about some of the big games later on. There's actually only 2 or 3 games. There's actually 2 games in September. We've got an international break as well. And so I've put in terms of some of the big games, I've put one on October 1st because it's North London derby. But I think once we get to that point, and I think with Fulham, Brentford and you guys, I think it's pretty rosy for some of West London. I can't believe I've even... What am I doing? Why have I even put this forward?
This is so weird.
Myself. I know, this is a weird shout, but it popped into my... I think it's because I don't want it to happen. That then popped into my head. But I was just looking at the table and I was looking at the fixtures. You can't see this, but the people can. You've currently got Fulham in 10th. You've got Brentford in 8th. And you've got Chelsea in 6th. And then when it comes to the fixtures for those teams, Brentford have got Southampton, Arsenal, and Bournemouth. Fulham, where's Fulham? Arsenal, oh, not Arsenal, sorry. You guys have got, well, you've got a tricky one, but you should be all right. You've got Fulham, Liverpool, and Crystal Palace. And Fulham have got you guys, Nottingham Forest, and Newcastle. So I've been really impressed with Brentford. I really thought that they would... I thought this can't go on. I thought that surely the names aren't there, and when we're talking about it in the first half, that it's so awash with money that the fact that they've not spent loads, it's the same old trap that I fall into every single time with Brentford, that they're going to kind of struggle. And I nearly put them in my bottom 3 initially for my predictions. The reason I didn't was because of what's occurred year in, year out, where I go, I don't know these Danish players. I've never heard of these names. Honestly, talk to a Brentford fan. They will tell you, like, they just go, oh, so we've signed a couple of guys. They're like, do you know who they are? And they're like, no. Like, will it be fine? Yeah. And they're fine every single time. And, beating Man United the way that they did, and with these games coming up, I just think they could do well. And Fulham they've been very, very brave in how they've played, and I can't see that changing either because they had a decent transfer window as well.
So the Queen's Park Rangers fan is...
What am I doing?
Highlighting and acknowledging the brilliance of the 3 other West London clubs.
I wonder if there's something... Well, brilliance. I wouldn't say brilliance with Chelsea. I think they should be much higher than where they are. But what I am hoping for, because I predicted that Chelsea would have a great start, is that this one... Because the Alcott jinx is alive and well. And I wonder if this might hopefully kibosh that. So hopefully they'll all be in the bottom half. Oh, that'd be sweet.
Yeah,
That'd be nice.
I'm sure you would love that. Do you know what I've gone for here?
Go on.
I've gone for Wolverhampton Wanderers making a significant play for Conference Europa League football. I think that they are going to march up the table from now. So we're recording now, and they're what, 14th, 15th, something like that, struggling. I think that is 14th. All coming to the end. Yeah, I think. Look, Diego Costa arriving there is significant.
You aren't serious. You aren't serious. You aren't seriously saying Diego Costa is going to be a star at Wolves.
No, not necessarily a star. But I think, do you know, every time I watch Wolves play, what they have, firstly, it's very important, I believe at least, to acknowledge their manager is top class. I think that Bruno Lage is really solid. And the other thing about that team, do you know what they are full of? James, you and I play football together, so maybe you know that I always find this kind of football really appealing. They are full to the brim of ballers. Quick feet, knock it around. Doesn't matter whether it's Neves or Moutinho or Podence or Neto. They are all excellent footballers, but they haven't got a ruthless centre forward. Diego Costa will score enough goals, will create enough just to galvanise, to be the focal point, and they are going to rocket up the table. That is my bold prediction for the next month.
I think that's outrageously bold. I think you've had a stinker here, mate, to be honest. First of all, they've only scored 2 goals this year. They don't really score goals. They just draw games. Ask Wolves fans. They are as tippy-tappy as they are, they're really boring. Really, really boring. Diego Costa is not going to make any impact whatsoever, in my opinion. I think he's going to get bored and he'll be back for the carnival by January. He'll kick up a fuss. I don't see it happening at all. The Bruno Lage loving, I don't see the difference between him and Brendan Rodgers. I don't know why you're saying Brendan Rodgers is rubbish and he's good. And the final nail in the coffin, and this is quite a hefty nail, let me go to the fixtures for the month. And I will scroll down to the bottom of this fixture difficulty planner. And there you will see Wolves will play Liverpool away, Man City at home, and West Ham away. So you're telling me, and I know I'm ambushing you here a little bit because you're probably not seeing this one. Otherwise, you wouldn't make such a ludicrous call. But you're telling me that they're going to be making big points and big goals against these 3? Try and spin that one.
I think that Wolves certainly the change will start now. And come the end of the season, I honestly think that Wolves are going to be pushing right up there for European football. That is my big, bold call.
It is. It's big. It's bold. And sure, the Wolves are funny. Like you do expect a little bit more. And I do like Nunez. They've signed. See that was who's it? Nunez and is it Guedes or something like that? A couple of Portuguese players basically, and they will add to it. And kept Neves actually is quite important, isn't it?
No doubt, because at one point it looked like Manchester United were going to get hold of him, didn't it?
Yeah, and Nunez would have been good at Man United as well. I'm surprised they didn't go for him. But yeah, okay.
That's my big call. Now we're going to do a slightly smaller call, something less in your face,
less punchy,
less bold.
Okay.
So James, you get us underway here. What are you thinking for a small call?
So my small call is that Man City will not be top of the table come October 1st. Backing those sweet Gunners. I don't know if you know about this. So on the pod, Flav was kept going on about. He obviously goes on about Tottenham and hates Arsenal, and I was like, pretty much to wind him up. I was like, why don't I sort of support Arsenal this year? And he's like, yeah, they could be my sweet Gunners, and he hates it. You can feel him just sort of, what's the word, vibrate in a horrible way. And it's difficult to watch, but it's so funny. So I'm going to stick with that. I just think Arsenal have done well, obviously. Man City, let's have a look at their fixtures. Man City have got, I expect Man City to win games, I get that. But Arsenal got Everton, Brentford, and then the North London derby, which we'll talk about in terms of the big games. Man City got Tottenham, Wolves, your mighty Wolves, and the Manchester derby. Within the next month or so. I just think Arsenal will keep it going. And Man City, they've drawn a few. It's weird that they've drawn a few because they feel so dominant, don't they? And I think Arsenal will keep it going for a little bit longer. It'll be interesting to see how they cope with the Europa League. What do you think?
I just think that Man City, to suggest that there's any sort of issue for Man City, I just don't see it at all. I don't really feel like we have a title race. I hope, by the way, that you're right, but I don't think a title race exists. I think what we have is we have a one-team league in the way that Scotland have done over the years, in the way that Bayern Munich are doing it in Germany. I honestly think it's that, and the only reason that it hasn't been that over the past few years is because Liverpool, from FSG down, have been perfect. They have been the very definition of perfect. That perfection without money is totally unsustainable. And the only reason, look, Jurgen Klopp got Manager of the Year last year, which is a really rare thing. You aren't ever Manager of the Year if your team don't win the league. That's not something that ever happens. I think Pulis was the last time that happened. So the fact that Jurgen Klopp got Manager of the Year despite not winning the league is because everyone went, that was amazing what you did there. You managed to create a title race where a title race doesn't exist. Manchester City are famously slow starters. They're going to go from strength to strength. I hope I'm wrong because a title race is far more fun, and it would be great if you're right and we do have some jeopardy around the league. But I think this is your howler.
So yeah, I think you're right. I think it'll be a procession, and I think you're right in terms of them sort of just starting to wheel away as the injuries and the games and all those things add up. I guess you have got a World Cup in between, which might be, because I was thinking about Liverpool and the struggles that they're having. I wonder if part of it is the fact that they're feeling like, oh God, they're almost like, God, we've got to go again and we've got to be perfect. I think it's a lot. When actually they should probably refocus themselves to go, let's just get to whenever it is, November, December, let's just get to the World Cup and see how many points we can get. I think maybe with Arsenal that you could have that, and so it might allow it to go on a little bit longer. But I agree with you. I think Man City will pull away. I think not yet, especially with only a couple of games in September. I think that they might be able to keep it moving, and decent games as well. So obviously, we're going to be chatting each month. I just think in this month they'll still be hanging in there by the end of the month. That's my idea. It might be one where North London derby, Tottenham topple, and that could be the difference. That could
be the moment. Yeah, that's definitely possible. For my small call, it's fairly uneventful. I just think that Mohamed Salah's going to find form. I just can't see this continuing. I rate him so highly. I actually think he's one of the best ever, and he'll start scoring goals again, surely. But
you would have thought so. Yeah, I mean, it's. I think they need to find their footing. Obviously, in terms of results, in terms of like the stability of the personnel in the team as well. Darwin Núñez, I can see what they're trying to do there. I get how it will be effective. And once you get Thiago, if he stays fit this month, do you get a bit more control all of a sudden? Do you know what I think is a massive mistake by them is letting Nico Williams go? I really think that Trent's got to play the whole season, every game. And I think that's a lot on him. And so his form might affect Salah a little bit, but I think once Núñez is back on the pitch and he's sort of stretching it for them, it might create a bit of space for Salah. So I agree with you. What do you think he'll finish on this year? Because obviously he's scored so many goals every single year. Do you think this is one where he gets back to those? Do you think he gets near 30, or do you think this is not that year?
I think it won't quite be that, but it will still be, top level output from him. I honestly do. I think he definitely hits 20. It will be, similar to Kane last year. When Kane was going a bit wrong and then found his rhythm and ultimately ended up scoring bundles of goals. I honestly think that's how it will go for Salah. Starting now, I just can't. Obviously, we could be wrong here, but I just can't believe that he isn't still the player that we have known for the past 6 seasons, breaking record after record.
There's not an Aubameyang syndrome here of he signed the contract and now he's not sort of fighting. How many times have we seen that with players where they kind of sign the contract and it kind of calms down a little bit? Yeah, I'm intrigued. Guys, let us know in the comments what number you think he'll finish on in terms of Premier League goals. Because I think with those ones, it's normally, what was he on last year? I'm guessing, I think it was around 23, something like that. Yeah. You'd expect 15, wouldn't you? Any less than 15 is a disaster, really, for someone like him and for Liverpool, right?
Yes.
But yeah, he needs to come good soon. You're right. It's a tough time.
Yeah, it's got to come. And do you know what? In that spirit, with the next question that I'd like your opinions on, pressure. Who do you think is most under pressure in the league?
I've gone with... So I haven't gone with... I think the most pressure is on Gerrard. But I think the one I put forward here, because I just think it's interesting to talk about, I think there's pressure on Klopp because he's hit such a high standard. And that we're speaking after the defeat against Napoli. And obviously that's off the back of a draw against Everton where they weren't great. There are a lot of injuries there, and you do wonder. I think often we can overcomplicate it, and you go, put forward your best team, and that's what made Liverpool great last year, is that they had their best team available the whole season, and the reason they struggled the season before is because they didn't have their best team for the whole season. But this sort of seventh season syndrome that people are talking about with Klopp, it's this is a high-profile team who've had it their way, where they've been playing this glorious football and not spending that much money and all those things for a long time. So if it does continue, you start to see these patterns. I think I'm sort of asking the question as much as anything. I think it does put some form of pressure on him. And with Tuchel, I felt like he was burnt out. I was literally, before he got sacked, I was getting ready to do a video talking about, he just seems, the way he's talking, he's lost patience. He's not providing support for the team. Klopp has that same relentless nature, but he always offers that support for the team. And I wonder if the results aren't there, if he starts to sort of wobble a bit, because it is a long season for them. So I do think there's a bit of pressure on him.
I think it's interesting to explore Klopp because he's also looking very. He's very prickly in
he does when it's not going well. He does, doesn't he? That's why I think there is that similarity with him and Tuchel.
He's got that. He's got that. And but the reason why he's not top three for me, even in terms of pressure, is because Steve Gerrard. You're absolutely right. I mean, every game, all eyes are on him. Every game, and people are waiting for him to fall, and that must be so difficult. Brendan Rodgers, I feel like. The clock is ticking there because Leicester are now bottom of the league. They are potentially going to be relegated, and that will put any owner under significant pressure to make a move. And with Klopp, I just feel like Klopp has so much in the bank. Not in terms of sacking or anything like that. I'm not suggesting that for a second. I just mean in terms of patience, in terms of belief from the fans, in terms of belief from the players. I just think that they've achieved so much together, like not winning the league, coming back and winning it, not winning the Champions League the next season, coming back and winning it. It would almost be like having a bad season. What history has taught us about this team is that as soon as something doesn't go their way, they didn't win the Premier League. They got to the final, if you like, of a Premier League, hit ridiculous amounts of points and didn't win it. The next year they smashed it. They got beaten in a Champions League final. The next year they smashed it. They've had potentially having a bad season. I don't think there is any pressure on Klopp because I think that the belief will be he'll come back and smash it next year.
Yeah, broadly, totally agree with you. Here's where the pressure is. The pressure is in this month of September, because if you come out of your Champions League group within this month, if you lose those first three, which you never know, it's actually quite a trick. It's starting to look like a tricky group, isn't it, for them? And if you continue with the form that's occurred in the Premier League, I think this is part of the problem for them, is that Man City is so strong, kind of full stop. And with that in mind, it's like the season's over. They were feeling like that last year when they had a couple of draws and you go, oh God, we've drawn a game. That means the title's over. Because that's what the aim is for Liverpool. So that's where I feel like there is pressure within the confines of this month, is that the whole season kind of goes out the window if you have a disaster, fall out of the Champions League, get yourself in a rut with the Champions League group and the league as well. Because it does feel like that. You've got to be perfect these days.
Yeah, well, and they're the architects of that. It's weird, isn't it? Because in a bygone era, a draw to Fulham, for example, isn't the end of the world. In fact, it could be seen as a good point. You played really badly, you were losing the game, you got a point. Whereas because of the high standards that Klopp and Guardiola are responsible for, the value of the draw has basically been distilled to nil. Yeah, like it doesn't. Like there's nothing in it. There's nothing in it for Liverpool draw, is it? It's as bad as a loss.
And I think you felt that panic. That panic in the performances in the second half of those games against Everton, Fulham, Palace as well, especially when they went down to 10. They they had a bit of fire there, but I think that it's tough as well. I don't think they believe they have the answers. Previously, you'd go, Mane gets out of trouble. or that front three collectively will get us out of trouble. I think he's kind of relying on that at this moment in time, you know, in the use of Firmino, for example.
Yeah, I agree with that as well.
And the midfield's just, you know, the personnel's not there right now. And so when the expectations are so high, I think there's a bit of rabbit in the headlights, to be honest. And you're relying on a kid in Carvalho, a kid in Harvey Elliott at this stage still. And so
James,
I think it's a tough one.
Mad stat? Have you seen an amazing thing that tells you why Liverpool are in the trouble that they're in? One Liverpool central midfielder was playing Premier League football before his co-midfielder was even born.
Yeah. That's the thing with the Milner thing, is when Milner's got to be a key part of it, that draws into focus the fact that, you know, when you're giving someone another year, partly because of what they provide the dressing room, but also, you know, he can play right back, he can play left back, he can play, you know, come in and enforce in the last 20 minutes of games. That's fine, but there'll always be a year where you're like, that's a year too much. And I wonder if this is that now, especially when he's like having to play games, because you've got players that you can't rely on in terms of fitness, and then you've got a player you can't rely on be it legs, which I would be, that feels slightly amiss to say because it's Milner, who's, you know, I would never overly worry about his legs, but maybe, you know, you need a little bit more quality these days. And I'm not sure he's totally got that. He's just a bit part player when he's having to play a key part at this moment in time. He struggled terribly against Napoli.
I agree with that. In terms of the next month ahead, in terms of looking out for somebody in particular, what are you thinking?
In terms of games, or
no, just in terms of a team, in terms of a player, is there anything like? Did you mention Bournemouth or somebody?
Yeah, so someone to look out for. Oh, sorry, who was your pressure on? You put your pressure on Gerrard?
Rogers, Gerrard.
Yeah.
Rogers, Gerrard.
Yeah, look out for Bournemouth. I said it. Look out for Bournemouth. The reason I've said Bournemouth is because of their fixtures, and they've had obviously a tough month. Played Arsenal, played Man City, played Liverpool, of course, which didn't go well. Their next three are Brighton without a manager, Newcastle and Brentford. And I'm kind of rooting for Bournemouth this year. I'd like to see, it'd be fascinating if they finish above Nottingham Forest. I think it would be a nice reminder that you can get around the money parts of it. I think they're going to have to go pretty pragmatic. They obviously haven't got a new manager yet. They've still got Gary O'Neill as the gaffer, and they sort of snuck a win against Forest. But yeah, I think it's a really important time for them because, especially like Brighton at home, Brentford at home, got to win those ones. And if they do, they start to give themselves a bit of confidence, a bit of belief. I think it's a squad that's actually got a lot of players that, if they're playing for Brighton or Everton, you don't think that they're that bad. It's just the sort of collective quality of them feels like a little bit off at this moment in time. So that's why I put Bournemouth down for that one, just because I think it's a big month for them.
Yeah. Do you know who I think that we should be sort of keeping an eye on? It's more of an individual than a club. Declan Rice.
Interesting.
Like, I don't know. Do you think he's doing enough? I feel like he's sort of half pulling his punches, because he knows that he starts in a World Cup.
Right, that's interesting. Well, he's actually. You've got the international break in all this as well, which I think we'll definitely probably have to talk about the next one. We obviously have opposing views on Southgate. It's interesting, right? Like Matt Letizia. Google him, guys, if David ever saw him play. And actually, Rory said on Dream Teams, I remember, and it got put on TikTok, and someone got some views out of you, actually, because they said, if you ever want to have a good 20 minutes, go on YouTube and search Matt Letizia. And the reason why that was the case is that team revolved around him. And I saw that certainly last year with Declan Rice. Felt like Declan Rice was so important for them. They've really strengthened. They spent a decent amount of money, and they've brought in, like the Paquetas of this world. Like, they've brought in some ballers, right? And they've got depth and they've got quality. And it should be one where it's not 3 or 4 players. It should be the whole team that's really, really like putting other teams to the sword, right? So with that in mind, you then, whereas previously it was a case of Declan Rice sort of being all action and everywhere. And you sort of, when I watched West Ham last season, he just looked a bit bigger than everyone else. Like I couldn't keep my eyes off him. And he'd get on the ball, driving the ball, and someone would fill in for him and all those things. This year, I think what might be important, and as I was talking about this with Scott McTominay, people are feeling like Scott McTominay is playing better. I think he's just doing less of the things that he's bad at. And I wonder if with Declan Rice, it might be the opposite, where you're not seeing these like lung bursting runs and all those things as much because the collective's better. And that might mean that he doesn't feel like he's having as good a season, or people don't feel like he's having as good a season. But it's a massive few months for him. Because he's crucial. He's crucial for England, right?
I think he needs to. I just think we should keep an eye on him. Basically, I just think that the performances need to be at the same level, because I think he knows that there's a world. Well, he obviously knows that there's a World Cup. I think he also knows that his place is assured in the England team, so he isn't playing for his place as such.
You think he's got the handbrake on?
All he can do is, I think he's pulling his punches a bit. He's just not quite the player, not quite as committed as he once was. So just that for me is just something that we just need to be aware of.
Yeah. The next few, obviously got the Europa Conference League games. That'll be interesting as well. See if David Moyes decides to sort of rest a few, because they've signed like, what's his name? Flynn Downs. And so they've got some numbers in there now. Whereas like before it was like you had to play Thursday, Sunday. In the league, they've got Newcastle, Everton and Wolves in the next three. So those are three games where, he should be like battling for that man of the match, shouldn't he? Each time he should be having a real influence. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. Yeah, I like that. It's a good one to keep an eye on.
Just somebody to watch. We've touched on the big games. There's a lot to keep an eye out for this month, isn't there? There's a lot of. Did you say there's a North London derby at the end of the month? Yeah,
so we've got a Manchester derby, we've got a North London derby, and there was a couple of others I quite liked as well. There was one with one for the other guys is Southampton. I think was it Southampton Bournemouth or something like that. I had it somewhere. Forgive me. I'll have a little look.
Seaside rivalries there. Seaside rivalries.
There's one down. Oh no, sorry. Southampton Everton. That was one that I thought was interesting, because I kind of wanted to hear your thoughts on Lampard, because so Everton kind of drawn the last four. Everton had quite. They've played Brentford recently. Played. Who else did they play? Villa recently, who've obviously had a tough start to the season. Got a draw against Liverpool, which is great. But next three, Arsenal, West Ham, Southampton, Arsenal away. You would imagine that those two are kind of tough for them. And for a club like Everton, as big as they are, I just saw that fixture and I thought,
huge game.
Yeah, because if they get to that point and they haven't won one yet, then the pressure's on.
It's also a huge game for Arsenal, because this is what we're about to learn a lot about Arsenal. We're about to learn, how does Arteta react after a defeat? How does he set his team up after a defeat? Are they resilient? So there's an awful lot we'll learn about Arsenal. But I also think with Everton, they need a win, don't they? Not in this game specifically, but they're not being beaten, which is, I suppose, the first rule. But they do need to start picking up some wins.
That's it.
I think they're kind of just about doing enough, aren't they? People, look, I suppose this video is testament to it. We've spoken about pressure on managers. We've said 3 managers and nobody said Lampard. So in that alone, he's obviously doing something all right. But the expectations at that club have never been lower, have they? Survival is success now for Everton Football Club, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's what I think. It is a big month for them, and that Southampton game could get really, really big for them, because you 4 draws on the spin. If you and we sort of joke about it in the podcast, so how many games. It's so weird that Everton have drawn so many games, because the first one we said, we were like, how many games has Lampard got if he loses off the back? And I said, how many if he draws? And then we started talking about this thing, like, imagine if he drew 38 games, he'd be safe. They'd be fine. He would have kind of done the remit. So if they play Arsenal and get a draw, that's a great result. But then it'll be five draws on the bounce. But if they lose to Arsenal and West Ham, then it's like they still haven't won a game. It's them and Leicester as the 2 teams that haven't won a game at this moment in time. So I think that Southampton game could be huge.
And for Lampard
them.
alone, for just not necessarily for the eyes of the world, but for Frank Lampard, managing a team against West Ham United is about as big as it gets. If he's lining up against West Ham, that is a game that really does mean a lot to him. So that's another huge game. So it's actually a massive month for Lampard.
Yeah.
They've got to get something right. But yeah, God, a lot of good football coming up, particularly considering that we're going to have an annoying international break, which now, James, leads us on to the final thing.
Okay.
It's like, we're like the Grim Reaper. Name the one manager that we are not going to be talking about next month. Who loses their job this month?
Okay. Sorry, just to say there was one final game is Chelsea-Liverpool in a couple of weeks. Potter, new manager, Klopp struggling a little bit, so that'll be interesting. I've gone with Rodgers. We spoke about Rodgers a little bit in the first half of this, the video that's on my channel. It's interesting. It feels like there's been an element of transparency in terms of the club coming out and saying, look, we're kind of keeping up, we're being careful, we're going to save our money for, next summer, and that's fine. But I feel like you've got the body language in the Brighton game is terrible. They're all having a go at each other. They haven't brought in anyone to freshen it up at all. And the way that Brendan Rodgers sort of speaks afterwards is that fine balance between going too far and going, Tuchling it. Or with Rodgers, it feels a bit like, yep, it's disappointing, it's on me, but we'll sort it, I guess we just go again. He looks fed up. He looks really, really fed up. The performances have no zip about them at all. And I think you've got a squad there of players that have maybe been there too long, a few that are good, and a few that are good but are wondering why they're there, and then a load of players that aren't actually that good. And if they're not careful, they will very easily go down in a season where I think their hierarchy are going, let's tread water a bit this season, and we can spend a load in next summer. I mean, it's dangerous.
Yeah, I think he'll go. I think he's in trouble. I think he's in real trouble. I think the way that he's conducting himself in press conferences as well, he seems to be really, really on the front foot and fairly arrogant about it. Like, I saw one where he was interviewed about conceding from set pieces a little while ago, but he was interviewed about conceding from set pieces. And it was a completely legitimate question. If you're a Leicester fan, you have a complete you have complete freedom to want an answer to that question. And Rodgers just wouldn't answer it. He's like, well, Liverpool concede goals from set pieces. And you're like, yeah, I know. And
but you concede loads. But that was the thing, they conceded the most. That's the thing. It's a fair question. Yeah. The other thing is conceding.
And he just wouldn't answer it, James.
Yeah.
He just wouldn't answer it.
I think with Gerrard, I see the fight in Gerrard, and I think he's gone down certain tactical roads that haven't totally worked, and so he needs to fix that quickly. But I do see the fight there with Leicester. They've conceded so many goals after the 75th minute, and in the second half of games they've been atrocious. And that says to me that you've got a manager there that is incapable of getting a response. And if you are in a state of limbo, it might be one. It's tough. Either you stick with him and go, you are the best we can get, or you go and get that other guy and give him time to assess the squad so that you can make smart moves in January and in the summer. But it doesn't feel right at all with Brendan. I completely wholeheartedly agree. I think that he will be gone. And look, we'll discuss him, but we'll discuss him one more time. We'll discuss him on the next episode of this, but that's when he'll be gone. I'm sure of it. Time will tell, mate.
James, this has been brilliant. This is our first episode of this new strand that James Alcott and I are working on. So we really do hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please give the video a thumbs up just so we can monitor it, and we'll do another episode assuming that you like it. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure that you subscribe to both this channel and James's. And hopefully, if enough of you like it, we will see you all on the next episode. Alcott, you king. Thank you so much, mate. See you later, everyone.
Good job.
Hero, James. Thank you, mate.
Mate, easy.
I think that'll go down quite well.